Welcome to JADANK News Network. I'm Jacob Perrin.
And I'm Nellie John. In the novel To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch, an honorable and respected lawyer, defends Tom Robinson, a black man accused of assault and rape. A young white woman named Mayella Ewell from a poor and uneducated family claims to be the victim of this crime.
His main audience is the jury, as he attempts to convince them that Tom Robinson is innocent.
His opposition, or the prosecution, is trying to do the opposite and convince the jury that Tom Robinson did indeed commit a crime against Mayella. Finch is convinced that Robinson is innocent largely because Mayella was proven to have been hit by someone using their left hand, and Robinson's left hand had been rendered useless after an accident he had when he was a boy.
At the time of the trial in the 1930s, racism was very prevalent. Especially considering that the setting of this trial was Alabama, it becomes apparent why the jury, Finch's primary audience, may have been reluctant to believe that Tom Robinson did not commit the crime.
The exigence for this speech was the potential conviction of Robinson. Finch holds general respect for himself and the law, so he would not be one to stand aside and let who he believes to be an innocent man be prosecuted. Therefore, the purpose of Finch in the speech that he made to the jury is to convince the audience that Tom Robinson is innocent and that the existence of a case is not even justified to begin with.
Atticus Finch makes his claim appear advantageous because he argues that the other side has no evidence. He shifts the blame to Mayella. He criticizes the fallacious nature of the prosecution's claims, and he asserts that he trusts the audience enough for them to make the right decision.
And now for four of our analysts to provide an in-depth analysis of some rhetorical strategies that Finch utilizes in this speech.
Thank you, Nellie and Jacob. First, Atticus Finch paints the contention of his opposition in a negative and undesirable manner, thus making his own claim more advantageous to the jury by comparison and causing his audience to feel almost astonished that the argument was even brought to court. By reframing the issue in a manner that shows the opponent's argument as being invalid, Finch makes his side of the argument easier for the audience to identify with. To quote, Finch describes how this case should have never come to trial, thus challenging the legitimacy of his opponent's reasoning. By questioning whether the topic at hand is even worth arguing, Finch effectively showcases to his audience the absurdity of the argument of the other side, seeing as, according to Finch, there's only one potential outcome, the outcome he is arguing for. Finch also describes that the state has not produced one iota of medical evidence that the crime Tom Robinson is charged with ever took place. Again, Finch is stressing the preposterousness of his opponent's supposed argument by utilizing the audience's expectations against the prosecution, making it seem as though the only possible conclusion of this situation would be to agree with Finch's argument. However, this is far from the only rhetorical strategy seen in Finch's speech. Another method in which he gets his audience to identify with his argument is to shift the blame. Now to Elena.
Thanks, Alexis. Now, to discuss another way in which Finch effectively convinces his audience that Tom Robinson is innocent, it must be understood how he shifts the blame to the witness, Mayella Ewell, rather than to Tom, the defendant. According to Finch, not only is there not enough evidence to hold a trial at all, but there should not even be a need to do so, seeing as Tom is innocent. Finch explains how, while he feels pity for Mayella, he stresses the guilt of her actions. He does this through repetition of the word she, by saying, "She tempted, she was white, she did something in our society that is unspeakable, she kissed the black man." He uses this repetition to reframe the issue at hand and make Mayella seem more at fault than she originally portrayed herself. Another quote he uses is saying, "But my pity does not extend so far as to her putting another man's life at stake, which she has done in an effort to get rid of her own guilt." This sentence is saying that she completely turned the situation around and was simply playing the victim all along. Up next, Donovan will explain how Finch appears advantageous to the audience.
Thank you, Elena. Next, Finch argues the intrinsic fallacies within the argument of his opponent, yet again pointing out the flaws in the prosecution's claims. In doing so, he frames his stance to appear advantageous to the audience, but not only painting his opponent's argument as being invalid due to a lack of evidence, as Alexis discussed, but also it being based off of erroneous beliefs that are not factual. He describes that the audience holds an evil assumption in which they believe that all Africans, quote, are basically immoral beings and are not to be trusted around a woman, an assumption that one associates with minds of their caliber, and which in itself, gentlemen, a lie. He is bluntly stating that the argument of his opposition is based off of ethical beliefs that are a lie, claiming it to be completely illogical to assume that Tom Robinson was guilty solely based off of his race. In combination with Alexis' argument to how there is little to no evidence, this explanation of how Tom's race does not equate to crime, while against the ideas and values of many in the Alabama courtroom, opens the audience to the idea that Robinson could not be guilty. Next, Cal will explain how Finch displays the importance of the audience and how that aids in his argument.
Thank you, Donovan. Finally, Finch places a significant amount of trust in the ability of his audience to make the right decision, thus appealing to his audience by showing that he has faith in his audience, which fosters a sense of mutual reliance on each other. In stating that, I am confident that you gentlemen will review without passion the evidence that you have heard, come to a decision, and restore this man to his family. He is endowing his audience with the responsibility to acquit Tom Robinson. By doing this, he is stating that this undoubtedly would be the right decision for his audience to make. He pleads the audience to do their duty, implying that the right decision for them to make, the only decision that they can make, is to exonerate Tom Robinson. Now back to the anchors for some concluding thoughts.
In conclusion, throughout the speech that Atticus Finch gives to defend Tom Robinson, a multitude of interesting rhetorical strategies that he uses can be seen.
For one, he argues that the prosecution has no evidence, thus bringing the validity of the entire argument into question.
He also shifts the blame to the supposed victim, Mayella, thus highlighting how Tom Robinson is actually innocent.
Next, he criticizes the inaccuracy of his opponent's claims, making his stance appear more advantageous in comparison.
Finally, he ingrains a sense of trust that he has in the audience within his argument, holding them to the standard of making the correct decision and acquitting Tom Robinson.
I'm Jacob Perrin,
And I'm Nellie John.
and this is JADANK News.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. That's it.
Yes, y'all did it.
That was awful.